Okay. All right. You were watching or listening to the Holistic Travel Nurse podcast. Might be on his podcast too. Might take this conversation both places. I have Fred on, a fireman, first responder, outside of New York. In New York, but not in the Manhattan area. But people could explain it's all. If anyone's been to New York, they'd know it's quite big and where you're at. And you are a health and fitness expert. You don't want to say you are, but you've been doing this for so many years. You definitely are a fitness dude. You have an Instagram account where you really inspire people to move their body and exercise and do something to bridge their health with their fitness. And I think that's important. In this conversation, everything that's been happening in the world, I thought, well, gosh, a nurse and a fireman with all the craziness that we were chatting before we recorded. And it's been a little nuts for both of you. I mean, have you taped an N95 to your mask? I mean, have you not felt like it's sealed? Like I see nurses taping their N95 mask to their face.
No, I didn't. I've never done that, but I notice I keep touching it, which I know I don't want to do that either, but I'm at the point now where I'm so good at putting one on that it is on there, but I know I haven't taped it. No, I don't know if you need to do that.
That's what I've seen. I'm like, the anxiety that I see at work of people taping it, I'm like, for God's sake, do something. I'm like, I mean, you got to do something for yourself and protecting yourself. I just had my antibodies checked, but I think it's because they want plasma donations. And so I had blood work done and I'm waiting back to see if I have antibodies, which I really believe I do. I really believe that I've been around enough people and seen enough before it actually became so thing. And it looks like you are, that there's a possibility that I have antibodies.
Yeah, a guy we work with came out positive, and he didn't show any symptoms or anything like that. And I mean, we're in the firehouse all day. I was surprised, like when the whole thing started kicking off, I was like, we're all gonna get sick, because it's just impossible with the busyness to keep everything clean, and everybody's using computers in and out the door. And we did amazingly well through a major spike that we were we had to have FEMA actually send in EMTs from other states with buses just so that they could help us out with the overload. Fire companies were responding just as much as EMS and everything else. It was really rough, and it hit us hard and quick, but yeah, I got tested and I don't have any antibodies at all. And I know that if you have antibodies, yes, you can donate blood, and that actually is beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't. And you've been out in the field all over the place. I mean, you literally go into people's homes. I mean, we have to just right now just like thank all our first responders, because by the time they come into the hospital, I mean, you have just seen, and sometimes they don't come to the hospital, but you see the worst. You literally see the worst of people. You literally come into situations in the homes or on the scene of something that is pretty traumatic. And so how do you balance that?
Well, I wasn't doing a good job initially balancing anything. I was definitely doing what most people would do. I was just getting through it in the beginning. For me, from my perspective, everybody has their own situation, right? But I had recently I was promoted to captain, and I was over at a different firehouse doing a completely different job. And then they promoted me and sent me to a new firehouse doing something pretty much new for me to especially at a supervisory level. Thankfully, it was on the same shift, so I knew all the guys. That made it easy. And then, I'm still just learning the basics and learning how to be in charge. And, all that comes with a little bit, confidence issues. Am I making the right choices here? Little fires here and there where they went well, not because of me, but because of my crew. They were well-oiled machine. And next thing I know, we got COVID coming in, and I was feeling the stress. And then, of course, I'm on my way home from work after a 24-hour shift, not sleeping well, and I'm worried about giving it to my family. And, you know, I'm doing everything I can. And like, I have a 7-year-old daughter. What am I supposed to do? Say, keep 6 feet away? You know, so that played havoc with me for a while. And you saw everybody was starting to, after 2 weeks, you could see things changing. People less patience with each other. You know, there was a lot of tension amongst ourselves. And, you know, a few times we all caught it. All, you know, good guys. They're all good guys. And we caught it, and we said, you know what, we're falling under the wheel here. You know, we gotta be more professional here. So the way I started to really round myself up was I fell back to my basics. And my basics was, you know, this is what we do on the job. For medicals, this is what we do. For fire, I'm not going to overthink it, and I'm going to stay away from listening to the media. I'm going to stay away from listening to what politicians are saying. I don't care what the CDC says. They said wear N95s. That's all I need to know. We have Tyvek suits. That's all I need to know. And then whenever I had a spare moment, I would open up a book, and I would focus on leadership type of stuff. You know, that's what I like to read right now based upon the situation I'm in.
Oh.
And just keep it simple. And then before I enter the door, when I go home, luckily I have a 45-minute drive to get home. And on that way I unwind. And before I walk through that door, I make sure I'm in the right frame of mind. You know, I'm not going to bring that complexity and that stress in the door with me and spread it to my family. So, of course, you know, completely, you know, stripped down before I leave work, put on sweats, you know, before I enter the house. Okay, let me make sure. Okay, I'm running upstairs, take a shower. And then whatever happened, I got to partition it. And that's what first responders do. That's what people in the military do. That's what nurses have to do. You can't, your family, they understand, but you can't just bring that stress in the door on them, because it's not going to go well. And then that's just going to ratchet things up more. And then you got to go back to work and do it again. So it was a process, but thankfully there was a lot of avenues where I could go to get my mind focused, and, you know, it's podcasts and things like that, and books.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way of handling this. I mean, because it just hit, and my heart went out I actually volunteered to go do New York and New Jersey, and they kind of turned me down because I heard fellow nurses that were having a rough time, and they were working ridiculous. So I had a friend who made us masks like this and then bonnets for us, and I sent them actually and stress roller balls to some people in the New York area. Because I was like, well, I need to be able to give back. And I think in this crazy time that we're living right now, then we have the riots where everybody's getting together. And we're just going to see the virus spread.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. And so as both of us work in that field, we're just like shaking our heads like, are you kidding me?
and you know, what else is annoying is the short-term memory loss that is rampant, because now I'm seeing or hearing, see, as soon as this riot stuff happened, nobody was talking about COVID anymore, and how we have to, like, what do you mean nobody's talking about? These people are just piling out in the streets. The cops are just managing them at this point. They're not even, they can't force them. Nobody is paying attention to it. And then they're saying, well, if COVID was such a big deal, why isn't it spiking? Because it takes like at least 2 weeks to 21 days before you start to see symptoms, and you will see them. It's just a matter of time. You forget about all these minor details that just happened and that came across the you know, whatever, you know, wherever you're getting your information from. They said all this already. You seem to forget. So
it's not like the flu. This virus is very much not like the flu. I read the science of it because I'm like, I think it's my responsibility to know the science of what's going on and why it's so different and where it attaches. And I looked at another nurse in the ICU, and she didn't know this, and why lisinopril is not the best drug. And I was looked at her and I'm like, did you not read, because she's obviously a newer news, did you not read any of the science of this? There is PubMed out there. There are medical journals out there saying what this is like SARS and where it responds in the body and why it is genetically. There are just some people that are just more predispositioned, I think, about the ACE2 receptor sites on the cells that will get sicker than the others.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's our job to know this. And it's my job as to be responsible for my own health, my family's health, and then my patient's health to know what to need to know what I know. And I don't pay attention like you to protect my mindset. I'm like you, I don't watch the news. I'm hearing it from my parents or other people. They're like, oh, did you hear this? I'm like, no, to protect my own self.
Yeah.
I governed what comes in and comes out. I have some fabulous books afterwards I'll tell you about. And I would love to send a care package to the first responders. You'll have to give me your thing and I will send a care package from me.
Well, that would be great, but I would say send it to, volunteer fire departments, because those guys and women are doing it for free. I signed up for this as my career. I get paid to do it. And, we have a very good support system. I don't know what the volunteers actually have for support when it comes to like mental stuff or whatever. They probably have something, but I don't know to what level. But they're not doing it for a buck, and they could very well just say, I'm done, go hang it up. and nobody's going to say nothing. You're like, okay, then now you got nobody. So yeah, maybe if anybody's listening.
Yeah, maybe you can give me the link and I can put that in the show notes, because there are people that probably would volunteer and would.
Anybody, anybody listening, if you should have some type of volunteer something. Even if it's not fire, it could be EMS, first aid. Send them something, a thank you card, a box of N95s. Yeah, whatever you want. So it's the thought that counts. But
the man made that mask with some filters in there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know. The nurse that made my mask is retired, doctorate of nurse. I mean, she is like been around and seen everything, and feels that as she's been long retired in her 70s, feels the need that is important to give back and make something and help out in a way. Yes, we paid her for some of it, but it was very little to all the work that she was doing and making things. And I think there were so many people that were delivering us food. Were you getting food all the time delivered to the fire department?
One time somebody brought by Dunkin' Donuts, the big jug thing, and they brought donuts. And we said thank you, and they left. And after that, we put a sign up on the door outside, like unfortunately, due to COVID, we can't allow citizens in through the door. And guys ate the donuts. I didn't. I drank the coffee. But that's something you got to be careful with, right? You got to, where's it coming from? But that was right in the beginning, and we weren't sure what was going on yet. But it quickly realized, we can't have people come in here. So that was the end of that.
Well, we had people bringing stuff, and I was like, they should really bring us healthier food, or coffee. Anybody loves really good coffee. I'm a connoisseur of very good coffee, organic. I have some Ethiopian coffee that I've been drinking this morning. And so that's what I'm sure the firemen like coffee. I'm sure they like coffee.
I don't know if they like Ethiopian though. They like chock full of nuts. They like Dunkin' Donuts and Wawa, stuff like that. My wife brings home Ethiopian coffee now, and it's really delicious. And I actually have a sponsor for my podcast, and he makes he roasts his own beans in Brooklyn, and delicious coffee. So yeah, I like coffee too. I like experimenting with different flavors and things like that. Got to be careful though. You don't want to drink too much.
Yeah. Well, some people do it all day long, and their bodies are quite used to it. I know nurses that you just could not take their coffee away, especially when you worked night shift.
Yeah.
It's like they'd come in and make the pot. It was just hilarious when I worked my years of night shift. So yeah, that is really, really cool. And then now, as things we're recording this as the beginning of June. All the stuff has been crazy, so we expect, just like everybody else, we expect things to rise, and we expect people to support the first responders. We expect them to. What would you say they could do to be supportive right now to any first responder in the area, especially with all that's going on?
Well, we're still responding to whatever the situation is. And obviously, we're going to be getting up close and personal with people.
Yep.
So if anybody thinks that they've been exposed to COVID or, they within the past 2 weeks, they might have had a lot of contact with various people. Maybe they were involved in some of these protests or something.
Yeah.
If they can indicate that right away to the first responders. If they're inside their house and they could go outside to meet them, that's a good help. I'll give you an example of something, though. A simple 2-car MVA, a motor vehicle accident. We go to them all the time. Sometimes their cars are banged up, and our job is to make sure they don't catch on fire, but also we have to disconnect the battery. We may have to go into the car a little bit just to help the person get out or whatever. If there's COVID in there, we could get it. And we did have a group of guys. They had a very complicated vehicle extrication on the highway. It was bad. It was a truck that rolled over. It was on the side of the road. The guy was pinned in there. He was bleeding. And the guys are wearing N95 masks while they're doing heavy vehicle extrication, using the tools, the Hamatro tools, they call them the spreaders, the jaws of life. And you can't breathe through those masks after a couple minutes because they get saturated and you're breathing in your own CO2 now. So guys had to rip them off. And it turned out the man inside the vehicle who they had to get airlifted, who survived, he had COVID. So now all those guys were worried. Oh, wait, now we have COVID. Turned out they all passed with flying covers. Nobody picked it up. But it's stuff like that, We're going to go in. We're doing it. We're doing whatever we got to do. So if anybody can help and just indicate like, hey, I got tested. I'm positive. I'm not showing any symptoms. Okay, thank you. We could take a step back. We could go on air. We could do something.
Okay, that is a great view. I mean, I've also heard with all the crazy riots that there have been 911 calls that have been hard to get out to because of people being just literally in the way and not moving. And that just breaks my heart because that prevents people getting help that they need. And luckily we're in my community, we haven't had that issue. Good.
But I saw early on when it turned into riots, I saw videos where there's a fire, you could clearly see it, and the fire engine is driving down the street through a crowd of people. The driver is doing his best job possible because he doesn't want to hit anybody. And I used to drive, and driving in a busy city with a fire rig is not easy. It gets stressful. And they're smashing the windows with rocks. And these guys are trying to respond to a fire to help put out the fire that shouldn't have even been lit to begin with. And, people have to think here, like, what they're really doing. It's not just a materialistic thing like, oh, well, it's, we're making a statement, so let's burn down a business. You're causing the first responders to have to respond to that fire, possibly get into an accident on the way, possibly hit somebody, whatever. But they're also taking them away from the real calls that are going on. What if Mrs. Jones down the street is having a heart issue? Well, all the fire units are out. All the EMS units are out. She's waiting an extra 10 minutes before maybe one person shows up that knows what they're doing. That might be too late for them, So you're robbing resources.
Exactly. For heart attack and strokes, their time. They're all when you can, and how quickly you have to call and get them to a correct place when it comes to a heart attack or a stroke. I'm sure you're stroke certified and you understand. Same thing with heart attacks, and it is. And in that part really is heartbreaking to see people are disregarding other people's lives in their behavior. Not to mention breaking the law. You're literally breaking the law. So the laws are there to protect you and me. So it's just, you can protest a different way. Protest and not go out in the public. Do something on your social media. Do something on social media that will just show, because that's enough people are doing that, and it's making a edgeway in what they want to get across.
Yeah, well, the best protest I believe is boycotts. Boycott, because if you boycott, I'm just randomly picking a business here. I don't have an agenda against anything, but everyone knows that Amazon's been doing very well right now because people can't go shopping. What if everybody just stopped using Amazon and sent them an email and said, hey, we're not using you anymore because of these issues, and you make it their problem? Now they're not getting any business. Who has more of an opportunity? Who has more opportunity to get on the phone with a senator or the president of the United States? You or the CEO of Amazon? Again, I'm not blaming, saying, do that. I'm just picking something random out of hat. It could be Dunkin' Donuts, okay? Because we don't like Dunkin' Donuts coffee. We like Ethiopian instead. But that's what you do. You boycott. It'll take longer and it's harder to do. It requires more organized effort. Mm-hmm. But I think it'll go much further because, once you establish that and their money gets reduced, then they're gonna do whatever it takes to get their customers back.
I agree. I feel the same thing when it comes to that's how we make change with I teach the natural healing, and there are so many products on the market that are so unsafe for our health, and the only way we're going to make change is with our bucks and where and how we spend our money.
Exactly.
And it's going to happen over time, and it's been a slow rise. Like, if you've seen the more organic things go up in food, well, there's no secret. There's enough people going, wait a second, we care about the quality of food we eat, and we want good quality food to eat, and we want less toxins on our food. Therefore, we will spend the money to not just support those farmers, but to support a healthier diet for our bodies with healthier food. And because if you don't invest in your health, nobody else is going to.
That's right. And
I'm sure you say the same thing. If you don't invest in you and what you want to do in your own health, you can't a pill. What we've been told and what we lied to in the media is like, oh, there's a pill for everything. There is not a pill for everything.
No,
there is not.
No, it's very sad. In fact, I remember I was having some heartburn issues, and I'm not a medicine guy. I'm a health guy, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree with you 100%. And I went to the doctor, and I know what's going to happen. He's going to prescribe Prilosec or something. And I said, no, I don't want that. He said, sure, it'll be fine, and you could go ahead and keep doing whatever you're doing. And I'm like, okay. And then he gives me an example. He's got a patient who he likes to drink his scotch. So he takes heartburn medication. He could drink a scotch. And I'm like, what? I'm like, maybe as his doctor, you should be telling him maybe don't drink scotch. That's not something that keeps you alive. Water and healthy food, that's what keeps you alive. But that's what the system does. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you have heartburn and you can't drink scotch, and you can't eat chocolate and stuff. Okay, here's heartburn medication. And we know that some of the heartburn medications, recently one of them just had to come off the shelf, I think, or there's a lot of debate over it causing some form of cancer, and you're just covering up symptoms. And those, the covering up the symptoms may be something that works in the beginning, but you still have the health problem there, and the original cause is still probably you're doubling that. Oh, now I notice I could drink more scotch because I'm taking Prilosec. I'm gonna have another glass. So your life is going to continue to degrade, even though you're taking that medicine, because as you pointed out earlier before we started recording, it's all a Band-Aid, and Band-Aids always fall off.
Yep, that's exactly how I see it. Exactly. Now, I am a big component to supplementation and proper nutrition and proper hydration, like you, and a proper diet. Like I grow my own. I live in an RV, but I still have like plants outside where I grow my own. And I just picked like radishes this morning. So excited for my radishes. So it's about making those really good, healthy choices, and realize that the choices that you're making are going to make the long-term effect when it comes to your short-term health and your long-term health. So those are so important. And you're the exercise dude. Do you teach? Because I know that a lot of people don't properly. I go to the gym. I love going to the gym. I was talking about yoga, but I've also loved to go to the gym, and I just watch, especially people in the gym, because I took in college I took weightlifting, and I've seen improper weightlifting. Yeah, and I love watching people do it wrong, going, "Oh, they're an injury in the making."
Yeah.
You are just going to injure yourself. So there's a proper way when it comes to like moving your body and exercising, especially with weights, that is so important. Do you want to talk on that?
Yeah. Well, see, it's an interesting thing because people are very resistant to changing themselves, especially in the form of exercise, because they don't see the benefits right away, and they want to see something in a snap. And that's why you see the popular things in the fitness world that seem to be making a lot of money and getting all the talk and the hype are the things that promise a 28-day loss of 10 pounds, increased muscle, and, your whole life is better. And they show videos where the guy's driving a Ferrari and whatever. And none of those things are really going to work long term. I always say, though, if it's the thing that gets you exercising, then that's great. If you want the 28-day program, but what's your plan afterwards? And the best way I could sum it up for most people, and we're talking about injuries and long term, is you really need to become a student of your body. And people take a lot of things for granted when they get up and they start walking from the couch to the TV. They go, I'm fine. What do I need? But they don't realize that the posterior chain, the butt, the hamstrings, the hips, the back are all tight and atrophying because you're not using them. And as we get older, we compensate. And it's been, the term is out there. People have used it. We're super compensators. Like, I could touch my toes. Yeah, but can you touch your toes without bending your knees? Well, no. Okay, well, technically you should be able to do that. So why are you able to do it, though? Is because you're compensating. And when you see like an old guy walking down the street and he's taking short little steps and he seems like he's up on the balls of his feet leaning forward, that's because he's compensating. His posterior chain, his butt, his hamstrings are almost non-existent. He doesn't have the mind-muscle connection, or they lack proprioception. And what's happening is all the weight is being distributed onto the front of their legs. And what is actually happening in the rear is the muscle is changing into tight, non-malleable type muscle. The fibers are changing. And that's not good. That's being unhealthy. You're once you can't walk well anymore, it's not long before your health seriously declines to the point where you might be, in risk of losing your life. So the thing is, that's a long time from now. I'm still young. I don't have to worry about that. Well, if you're not worried about it now, you're probably not going to worry about it when you get older, because you're just reinforcing the bad habit. So, one of the best things people could do, and in this country, I understand sometimes things are expensive, but we live in a pretty well-to-do society. And, to be able to afford a personal trainer once a week is not going to kill most people. they'll act as if it is like, oh, I can't afford $50 to $75 for an hour, because they're looking at that one little hour. Is this really worth it? I didn't see much change. But the thing is if you invest in your health, and that's what it is, it's an investment. It's not spending money. You're not spending $50 for a coach. You're investing $50 and learning from somebody how to move properly. What does that mean in the end? It means you're going to have better proprioception. Firefighters, we don't know what time it's going to be and what position we're going to be in, but we're going to be doing some type of work, wearing a tank, reaching, doing something. You see a lot of injuries with knees, ankles, and stuff like that. And a lot of that just has to do with the body's unwillingness to move well, because it's out of condition and there's lack of proprioception. It doesn't have to be firefighters. It could be anybody at any point in their life. You ever hear somebody injuring themselves? They say, all I did was turn my neck and twist, and my back just popped, and it was nothing. Well, that's because, you're out of shape and you have tension in that area. And yes, a weakness was exposed in that small movement. The bottom line is, if it's not important to you now, it's probably not going to be important to you later, because you're always going to have that ability to reset where you're at. Like, well, I'll do it later. I'll do it. That becomes your actual habit. The habit that you create is putting it off or another time. When the kids get older and I have more time, when this is going on and I have more time, you create that habit. And a bad habit is easier to make than it is to break. The best thing to do is, wherever you are in life, it's never too late, and say, now, today is going to be the day. And instead of going crazy, like, well, I'm going to go run 5 miles, which, yeah, it's not going to, that's going to kill you. And now you're not going to work out for a week. And then you're not, the best thing to do is just go for a quick walk, do 2 push-ups. Instead of eating all the bad food, switch it out and just put a salad in front of you. That's it. Small incremental adjustments, but you develop those habits, and each one parlays into the next. Invest in a trainer. A trainer will show you how to move properly, and then you'll start moving properly in everything you do. When I lift things up, I lift things with my butt and my hamstrings. Okay, I don't use my back ever. It might look like I'm using my back to some people, but I always poke my butt out and hinge and lift, and I squeeze my butt and my hamstrings. I do not want to hurt my back, because, like I said, when I was younger, 19 years old, I had a back injury that put me out for the whole summer. 19 years old, and I still remember that. And I said, I never want to go down that road again. So it's just a simple matter of daily practice and investing in yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually, that means sometimes getting a health coach or a personal trainer. I mean, I'm looking to do something different also with our business. Like, I'm looking to get into real estate a little bit too. And I was like, I'll hire somebody that has gone before me. That's what you want to do in life. If you want that achievement and you want that goal and you want to feel better, you need to have somebody who's going to help you. And then if it's someone just to be accountable to, that's so important. There are so many coaching programs and so many programs that I've been on a program right now that is pretty intense online. And it's because I need someone who's been there, who's done it before. And so that can help me along with the steps. And that's what this is about. That's what you do. That's what I do. That's what we do, because you should be working towards a better you. And if you're not, there's nobody else going to. Nobody's going to be working towards a better you but you. You have to take ownership of your health, take ownership of your life, take ownership of, especially of your health, man. Don't just throw it. Oh, the doctor said this, the doctor said that. I get it all the freaking time from my parents that, and I'm like, are you kidding me? What is your doctor doing? What do they say? And then I just have them, they send me copies. The cool thing is I get to, look at their labs and go, okay, well, Mom, this is, and I put my parents, my dad doesn't listen, actually, finally is when I've been saying something, but finally when the doctor told him, hey, maybe you should stay away from this food, because like we said, he can't eat certain things like oxalates. He can't eat oxalates. And so I'm like, I've been telling him that, but took someone else to finally tell him, hey, well, and they got the list of foods that he can't eat. And I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be eating those foods. And so I have a hard time with like some people saying, well, oh, you should just totally be vegan and vegan works for you. Or you should be, I have someone on here who's done carnivore and works carnivore for you. Everyone is totally different. We're all very unique in how we, and what we deal with food, because food is information for our body. It's not just calories in and calories out. It's information for your body. And so everyone responds differently to information differently. And I feel the same way. I mean, I don't mind going to the gym and working out with weights. I told you I did yoga with weights, which is, they just want to make it more difficult. But I love yoga. I love going to those classes. It's just more of a challenge. I like, and I will, but unless someone enters me, I've gone to an exercise class with this young fellow, and I walked out, like you said, and I don't know how much he knew, but I followed him, and I thought, oh, I'm like, my knee hurt so bad for a week after. I was like, this is ridiculous. He didn't look at my proper mechanics of lifting. Yep, a form, and just try to kill me in the gym, and thought, oh, well, that's what I'm going to do. And I don't even know how much training. I didn't go back. And I look at form, and then in yoga, I love looking at the form of the body and the movement of the body and the breath of the body. And there's a lot of weight resistance even if without weights, you have some resistance that you put on your muscles. But you can do that in so many different ways. But there has to be something that you're going to be doing for your body and moving your body, because no one else is going to care for your body but you. And I applaud your Instagram and your podcast. I will put it in the show notes below so people can get to know your Steel. What is it?
It's Steel Mace Nation. If anybody's watching on the video, you could see I got the banner up behind me. I got the hat. Yeah. I'm really into it, as you can see.
Where'd you come up with the name?
So the whole thing it's a weird way how it all happened, because Steel Mace, which again, if anybody's looking, you could see I have them all standing up behind me back there. They're basically weight on the end of a stick, and it looks a little weird. And it was an ancient weapon at one time. They bludgeoned each other with them, but it is now a fitness tool. I started using it because I was doing traditional weightlifting, and as a firefighter, that worked for me for a long time. But as I got older, I guess I started having muscle imbalances and instability issues, and it's crazy. I mean, I'm a certified personal trainer, but I couldn't see that in myself because, again, this is where a coach always comes in handy. You think you know everything, so therefore you're fine. Steve Jobs of Apple had several coaches. Why? Because he needed somebody from an outside, non-emotional, dispassionate, looking in and helping him see past his own BS, which we all have, and our own belief system. We all create our own beliefs, which not are always necessarily accurate. And so I did go to a gym where I knew that they had a good reputation. They started me on a program because I was having some shoulder mobility issues in my upper back, and that's why I was feeling like an old man. I just felt like I'm stiff all the time. And they gave me a mace just to do some simple tools with, and it just intrigued me right off the bat. And I started looking it up on social media, and I'm like, this is amazing. I was like, this is ridiculous how all the different things you could do. And it was within 6 months, I became certified in 3 different Mace programs. And I said, I'm going to start a podcast about it, not as an expert. And as I will always say, I'm not an expert, but I started it as a way to almost document my journey through the Mace world, because I realized it was a game changer. And I was also enthralled by the awesome conversations I would have with people. For instance, somebody said, they use a mace too. And their story would be, my shoulders hurt all the time. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. Started using a mace. They got better. or if it wasn't for the mace, I wouldn't, I have a better family life because we all use a mace together. Everybody had this special connection to it. And it was like, if you met somebody that used a mace, it was always a silent nod and a wink. Like, the secret that I know. And you were like instant friends. And so I started the podcast, and I did need a name. And Steel Mace actually falls under what you would consider unconventional training. Conventional or traditional is everything that you could think of that bodybuilders do, weights and aerobics, whatever. And unconventional, there's other things besides mace, like kettlebell, Bulgarian bag, animal flow, things like that. I was going to call it the unconventional training podcast, but that name just didn't roll well. And plus there's people on Instagram with that name already. And I was like, well, it's really steel mace. Yes, I like steel clubs. Yes, I like kettlebells, but Steel Mace. So it was a friend of mine that said, well, call it Steel Mace Nation. That's actually like a popular thing that people use. And I rejected it at first because I was like, I don't care if it's popular. But then I thought about it, and I always believe, I guess you could say I'm more of like a worldly type of person. I'm not so fixed on national, like geographic, like America or whatever. I feel like there needs to be more things that bridge us together as a nation in the mind, so to speak. The world can be a nation, right? People of the same collective thought can be a nation. So I saw something bigger and better from that name. And fitness and movement is a great rallying point for people. People love to see their sports. They love to see their elite athletes doing these amazing things. We all want to emulate that at some degree or another. It's a great way just to kind of like get people together. And then I'm a heavy metal dude. I like dark, grungy, hardcore music, and I like skulls and things like that. But the skull and the bones is actually, if you look closer at the banner behind me, it's bones morphing into a mace. Okay, so the bones are becoming steel maces, which signifies the mace is part of you. You are part of the mace. And then the skull is stoicism, meaning life is temporary. And we should be aware that today, right now, is the best day that we have. Make the best of it. So it's just a reminder to live your life to your fullest and to swing a mace.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was just pirates.
No, not a pirate. No. Yes, very, very much close to it. And yeah, it lacks a little originality in that department. But that's why I thought I'd explain it at least anyway, what it is.
Well, I'm glad you explained it all. I want to thank you for being on and sharing as a first responder. I want to thank you definitely. Well, the show notes to your podcast and to the volunteers, because there's so many people that volunteer, that we do need volunteers in all sorts of areas to help out. And I think it's important. I think it's important what you're doing, helping people move their bodies. And then thank you so much for your daily job. And when we're done, email me your mail-in address, and I'll send my thank you card out to you and your family for your sacrifice. And keeping your body moving is important, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, I thank you for having me on the podcast, Naomi. It's great to be able to spread the message, and you really don't have to send a thank you card with all the work that you do as a nurse. I am equally as grateful, if not more, for everything that nurses have to do. I have a nurse in my family, a cousin. I know how hard nurses work, and it is not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. You have to be super resilient. I know from what I do for a living, I have interactions with people, but then we move on to the next call, or sometimes we just go back to the firehouse. Nurses, you guys, you're there. You're interacting with your patients all day long, and to be able to have the ability to emote positive feelings toward these people, because the people will pick up on that, especially when they're in the worst of times. They're laying in a bed. Patients study the faces of the people around them, because that's the one way that they get a signal of what's going on. They're trying to connect the dots and make a connection there. And the nurses, the way you guys spread your positivity and make people feel good is the most amazing thing. And patients cannot heal well unless they have that. So I think that's like almost like a magical thing. And I hope people really appreciate that.
Oh,
So,
thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think people get, I think if they've been in the care of in the hospital setting, that how much their nurse means to them when in their healthcare. In the backgrounds, they don't understand that physician has a massive amount of people to see. The nurse only has so many, and they really have your safety at heart, and they catch so much of what's going on, and they speak up on the behalf of their patient time and time and time again. And that's what we do, and that's what I do. I want people to make positive changes. Like you said, it starts with something little, but make a positive change in your life, and it will ripple in time. It will ripple, and that's why I do what I do too. Because years in healthcare, I want people to feel empowered. I want them to know that they have options. I want them to know that they can do so much for themselves. I want to thank all those that go out there, because we all get in situations where we need a fireman or paramedic in our lives at times. And I've been on calls. I have stopped, no joke, on the way home from work, and I watched someone get hit by a car. And of course, EMS isn't there, so I stop and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? I'm like, as soon as EMS shows up, I'm like, I'm out. I was just waiting for them to stop breathing if I had to do CPR, but there was like nothing else I could do. I have gloves. I was like, okay, I have gloves and I could hold pressure if they're bleeding,
Right.
That's about it of it. I'm like, I can hold pressure to the best of them, or do CPR. But I was like, there's nothing else. I'm like, EMS is there. Bye-bye.
Right.
And so I appreciate that what they do, and they walk. You guys work so well as very well together as a team, and it's impressive and it's important, so important, especially in this day and age. And so, you know what? Give them grace, give them peace. What they're doing right now. If you want to go protest, fine, but you want them, let them go through. Let them get where they need to go.
Yeah, let us roll. Just let us roll, because we got those donuts waiting back there for us. We want to get back and eat donuts.
It's not just for the police department. The donuts aren't.
Nah, not really. They eat most of them. They save us the scraps.
Yeah. I told people it was National Donut Day the other day, and I was at work, and I was like, nobody brought donuts to us at work. It's National Donut Day, and nobody brought us donuts. I'm like, there was wrong. There was something magically wrong in the world that nobody brought the healthcare people donuts. But even though I'm gluten, I stay mostly gluten-free, but I was like, there's gluten-free donuts. I was like, this is wrong, because for the first couple of weeks in our COVID ICU, I think they didn't want us going anywhere else, like in that ICU, anywhere else in the hospital. They were bringing us food. There was constantly companies that were very awesome in bringing us food, and we're like, my gosh. But it wasn't the healthiest of foods. I mean, we had pizza, we had IHOP, we had Starbucks was really cool. When someone brought Starbucks,
that's cool.
Yeah, we were pretty cool. We're like, oh, coffee, awesome, sauce, sandwiches, pizza places. It was nonstop. Finally, someone did bring some fresh fruits and vegetables, and I was like, oh, cool, But it was nice to feel supported during that. And I had some people I've interviewed about being supported during this. And please just do your best in protecting yourselves and keeping your immune system strong by getting good nutrition, getting good rest, and moving your body, because moving your body deals with stress and helps with stress so much.
Absolutely. That's correct. And that's a great takeaway message. If anything, go for a walk and move your body and breathe a little bit. That's going to change a lot. So good way to sum it up there, Naomi. I appreciate you having me on again, and we'll look forward to getting you on my podcast to talk more about this stuff.
All right. I'm going to hit the end.
All right. Bye, everybody.